Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching 6th part of What If Kid Naruto Was Raised by a Legendary Witch. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto was sitting next to Maleficent in his chair. Now, the two were not very interested in what was going on in the Chunin exams below. Even so, why would they? Maleficent only came here to see her son beat Hitaki Kakashi, who was also one of her son's opponents. He did that. Maleficent would have left with her children if she didn't want Orochimaru's planned attack on Konoha to be a big deal. But that wouldn't be any fun. I feel like the invasion is going to start soon, Ka-san, Naruto said in a whisper, and Maleficent nodded. I know. Be patient, my son. We'll be ready when the snake strikes, Maleficent said as she scratched the top of Anko's head while in snake form. The Sandaime Hokage and Jiraiya of the Sannin are not happy, Maleficent-sama, Itachi said after he appeared behind his mistress. Maleficent said as she looked at the Hokage and Jiraiya in the cage booth, of course they're not happy. We took away their weapon. They have to follow the rules like everyone else. She saw that they were both looking over at her instead of paying attention to the Chunin exams. Not really a surprise, since the two idiots were always plotting to take control of Naruto and, to a lesser extent, Gaara. Hiruzen was probably salivating at the thought of having two of the 9 Jinchuriki in the world right here in your village. He wanted to be in charge of both of them. Hiruzen didn't really care that one of these Jinchuriki was the Kage's child, because he didn't care at all about Konoha's ally. In fact, the Sandaime Hokage had told the Fire Daimyo to keep telling the Wind Daimyo how great Konoha was when they met, so that the ruler of the mostly desert country would hire shinobi from Konoha instead of Suna. By doing that, Hiruzen knew that the Kage would act in a desperate way and use one of his own children as a Jinchuriki. At the same time, Suna's knowledge of Fuinjutsu was the weakest, if not the oldest, of all the shinobi villages. Because of this, a very unstable Jinchuriki would sometimes cause trouble in the village. Even more proof that Suna has a bad cage and even Suna ninjas in the village, so much so that the Wind Daimyo would rather do business with Konoha than with Suna. If Maleficent hadn't taken Gaara into the family she was making for herself, Hiruzen would be happy with how things are with Suna right now. Now that Suna is gone, Konoha could send an Anbu team into the village once it was empty and use the knowledge they left behind. Puppetry, poisons, and even Winjutsus were all part of Suna's history, and whoever owns it in the future will get so much out of it. Especially if the village that gets these things takes the time to learn how to use them. Maleficent looked over at the cage booth and saw that the Kage was looking at the Hokage with a mix of excitement and worry in his eyes. Maleficent had met the man before, so she knew for sure that the man with the veil on was not the Kage, but rather Orochimaru in disguise. No doubt the Sannin killed the real Kage so he could kill the Hokage during the invasion, but now that Jiraiya was close to the Sandaime, he was hesitant to give the order to spring the trap. Clearly, a big part of Orochimaru's plan for this moment was for him to fight the old Kage alone, without another powerful ninja getting in the way. Orochimaru didn't know that Jiraiya wasn't as strong as he used to be now that he didn't have the toads to help him. Which was too bad, because Maleficent was almost tempted to have Itachi tell the snake such things just to see what Orochimaru would do. All but. Itachi said, I also want to tell you that Suna's forces and those from Sound are ready to attack Konoha. All they need is the signal, and the invasion will start, while Maleficent smiled a bit. Maleficent said with a smirk, let them attack Itachi. I have something planned for the outside forces if they try to invade. Itachi asked Maleficent, you want to protect Konoha? Maleficent laughed. Of course not, Itachi. This place can burn to the ground for all I care. But there are some inside who shouldn't suffer for the majority of the whole. The village will fall in due time, but on my terms, Maleficent said as she looked at Hiruzen and let her smirk grow. Everything seemed to be going well. Itachi said, it makes me ashamed to see my brother act like my father and the other members of the clan, when he saw Sasuke fight Rock Lee right away while using his Sharingan eyes. During the month that they had to wait, Itachi sent a shadow clone to the Uchiha clan to check on his brother's training. You would think that Sasuke would be making good progress with Hitaki Kakashi as his teacher. The opposite is true. Sasuke had been training with the rest of the clan and with Kakashi while the Junin trained his team by himself or with his team. The boy didn't get as much out of Kakashi as he had hoped because Kakashi was always saying, I need jutsus. Give them to me now. The Uchiha clan wasn't any better. They helped Sasuke learn jutsus the Uchiha way by having him copy the jutsu used instead of reading the scroll full of information about the move before using it. Even though Sasuke knew a lot of jutsus now, he didn't know how to use them properly, and some of them took a lot of chakra to use. Itachi also knew that after the 1-month break for the Chunin exam finals, Sasuke should have done chakra control exercises to build up his chakra reserves so that the more advanced jutsus didn't drain him as much. Only to see that his stupid little brother was showing how proud the Uchiha clan was. As for what was going on below, Sasuke was finding his opponent, Rock Lee, to be more of a challenge than he would like to admit, either to himself or to those around him. Sasuke had only met the boy once, before the second part of the Chunin exams. It was a meeting that was mostly friendly. During the fight with the 3 sound genin, Lee saw Sasuke use his curse seal. He was about to do more when the boy in spandex kicked him in the face. It woke the Uchiha up from his crazed state, but it still hurt like hell, and he felt insulted by what the commoner did. Sasuke had seen Lee fight the sound genin before he showed himself. At the time, his Sharingan eyes were open, so he could see Lee's moves. So, Sasuke was able to use his own versions of Lee's original moves during the preliminaries. Sasuke wanted to find out more about Lee's fighting skills, so he asked Kakashi about Lee to get a sense of his opponent. Kakashi had told the Uchiha that Rock Lee couldn't use chakra because his chakra coils weren't developed enough when he was born. Even though he only had enough chakra to stay alive, like some regular people, Lee still wanted to be a ninja of Konoha. Rock Lee trained hard to become a taijutsu specialist because many people thought he had a disability. He did this to make up for what they thought was a weakness on his part. After hearing the explanation, Sasuke was even more sure that Rock Lee was the weak, stupid boy he thought he was, so he started training in his own way. The young Uchiha thought he could beat Lee with his Sharingan and the many jutsus he would learn during the long month with the help of his dojutsu, which was always getting better. Since taijutsu was the only real threat the Uchiha faced, his opponent couldn't be that strong. Sasuke thought that his eyes could guess the moves that would be used and copy them correctly. He then used a few well-timed jutsus that his clan members had let him copy for the Chunin exams to crush Lee. If Kakashi hadn't taken him away after his match to take care of the curse seal on his neck, Sasuke would have seen that Lee was more than he seemed. Genin, who wore spandex, was fast, plain and simple. Very quickly. Sasuke had only caught a glimpse of it in the Forest of Death, and he never really understood what Rock Lee had done to get to that level. You can call Maida Guy whatever you want, but one thing you can say for sure is that he taught his students how to work hard. The Junin had spent most of his life being looked down on, so he pushed himself to painful limits and even further when it came to training. As a result, he knew who had real talent and who could go far in life. He chose Neji, Tenten, and Lee as his students because he saw in each of them the potential to become something truly great with the right work. Lee didn't have any skills at all, which wasn't surprising since he couldn't use chakra for ninjutsu or genjutsu. So, Guy took the boy on as his own student when he couldn't help the other two. He didn't pick favorites, but Neji, Tenten, and everyone else had people to help them train, but Lee didn't. Neji had his clan for his gentle fist, and Tenten's father was the owner of a weapon shop. He was an expert with weapons, just like Guy was an expert with taijutsu. So, Guy made Lee look just like him in every way he could, from the green spandex to the eyebrows and everything else. Sure enough, his clone of a student did well in taijutsu, getting stronger every day and ready to take on any challenge. Lee didn't just work on his fighting style. He also got faster, stronger, and better at coordinating his hands and eyes. This made him better at any kind of close combat. And it worked really well against the Uchiha here today. Look at you, Kakashi. Guy was also smart because he waited a full year to even think about putting his students up for the Chunin exams. He did this so that his students could get the much-needed experience of being a ninja. After all, sending new genin to an exam meant to help them move up in their careers was not only stupid, it was downright dangerous, and the Junin let everyone know how he felt when it was time to choose the genin teams that would represent Konoha at the Chunin exams. Because of this, 2 of his students out of 3 made it to the finals. Even though Kakashi had the same number of genin as Lee in the finals, the Uchiha weren't doing so well against Lee at the moment. The boy in the spandex used his speed to avoid the jutsus that were being thrown at him, and then he used his taijutsu skills to knock Sasuke out. In fact, Sasuke's face was badly bruised, and he may have broken a bone or 2. The Uchiha was sweating because he had used so much chakra on Lee with the different fire jutsus he used. Lee didn't even seem out of breath. The boy seemed disappointed that Sasuke wasn't fighting him at the level he thought a prodigy should. When Itachi was first thought to be missing, the Uchiha clan put in a lot of time and effort to make it look like Sasuke was the next best thing. How Sasuke would one day be stronger than Itachi and his father, making him the strongest Uchiha. And yet, the Uchiha couldn't even beat that dead last student from the previous year, who couldn't even use chakra. You surprise me, Sasuke-san. I was expecting a challenge from someone in your clan who was known as a prodigy, like your big brother. I worked hard all month with Guy-sensei to get ready for a match with you, but your skill level isn't as high as mine, Lee said in a tone of voice that showed his disappointment. Sasuke, on the other hand, was furious that this nobody of a ninja, who couldn't even use chakra like normal shinobi, beat someone from his clan. Him. Sasuke, you're up. The youngest son of the leader of the Uchiha clan. Being beaten up badly by this loser who thought it was cool to wear green spandex in public no matter what other people said. This loser is not going to beat me. Sasuke thought this as he felt his curse seal pulsing and the seal around it that was supposed to keep it under control weaken. Kakashi told Fugaku and Makoto right away about the curse seal that Orochimaru gave to the boy and the steps that were taken to stop it from poisoning Sasuke's mind. Makoto was worried about her son's health because the person who owned it was not a very nice person. Fugaku, on the other hand, was much more angry that Kakashi locked it up instead of letting Sasuke practice using it. Since he was a Uchiha, Fugaku was sure that someone from his clan could control something so powerful. Given that it was his son who had the curse seal, the Uchiha clan head thought it was clear that Sasuke should embrace it more than was allowed. Fugaku only gave in when the Sandaime made it clear that Sasuke wouldn't be able to take the Chunin exams if he even tried to train in how to use the curse seal. He might even be put in jail until he was told otherwise. The Sandaime Hokage knew that Orochimaru only gave the curse seal to people who were important to him in his plans to become immortal. If Sasuke used the curse seal, it would only help Orochimaru reach his goal more quickly. Unfortunately, Sasuke had to use his own willpower to make the seal Kakashi made work and stop Orochimaru's mark from spreading. Orochimaru's betrayal made Anko hate him, so it wasn't hard for her to fight the curse mark he gave her. From her time with the Sannin, the woman knew a lot, but she didn't want to hurt innocent people like he did in his search for immortality. Many people who knew Anko at the time were thankful for this and wished that the people in charge in Konoha and the rest of the people would see this about the woman. Sasuke, on the other hand, was full of pride and wanted to get stronger to be as strong as or stronger than his older brother. He didn't have any of Anko's restraint when it came to getting power. He didn't hold himself back. So, the curse seal was fighting the power of the suppressing seal Kakashi put on Sasuke's neck and winning because the Uchiha didn't have enough willpower to fight it. Even now, the boy's curse seal was starting to show on his body, and dark, evil chakra was starting to show itself, if only to strong sensor-based shinobi with sharp eyes and, of course, in the arena, where Rock Lee frowned when he saw the evil energy. Lee was lucky because he had seen the curse seal's power before. He was one of the few people who had seen the Uchiha's dark transformation and actions after his cursed awakening, as everyone called it. Lee knew that Sasuke would get a second wind from this, even if it was only for a short time. He knew he had to take Sasuke down hard. Fast and hard. With that in mind, Lee moved forward again, hit Sasuke harder and faster, and knocked the Uchiha back near one of the arena walls. At the same time, the power of the curse seal was getting stronger because each blow hit Sasuke's ego as well as his body, and the boy's mind was telling him to use the power Orochimaru gave him. Piece by piece, the curse seal was slowly healing Sasuke's body and giving him more strength, even though Lee didn't know it at the time. So, this showed the Uchiha that he should use this power to win the match. This strength. It is amazing. It's not enough. More. I want more. Sasuke thought as his eyes slowly caught up to Lee's speed and started to fight back. From the seats. From what I can tell in the arena, Itachi, your little brother is using Orochimaru's curse seal. Maleficent said this as Itachi frowned at the sight of his brother using such evil chakra. Itachi said, Sasuke is impatient. He hasn't been training enough to fight someone like Rock Lee, so his short temper and Orochimaru's curse seal drive him to find a way to win no matter what. He was clearly upset with his younger brother. He definitely takes after his father, Maleficent said as she looked over at the Uchiha clan head, who was sitting with the others in the stands and seemed to like what he saw from his youngest son when he used the dark power that Orochimaru had given him. Poor Makoto was worried, and rightly so, because the energy coming from the boy's body was so disgusting. Do you think the referee will stop the match? The Uchiha must have been told not to use the curse seal, and what would happen if they did? Naruto asked, looking at the referee and then at the Hokage in the cage booth, who didn't seem to care. At the time, the Sandaime didn't really care about Sasuke. Why would he worry about one power-hungry Uchiha brat when the clan had a lot of them? There were 2 healthy and strong Jinchuriki in the village of Konoha right now. And he was almost literally, if not painfully, close enough to them to catch them. Maleficent said, "That's up to him, Naruto," as she watched Sasuke move faster and almost catch up to Lee, but not quite. Sasuke was still on the defensive, but not as much as before. With each sudden boost of power from the curse seal, he was pushing the attack. After hitting Lee with a blow that made him fall back, the boy in spandex looked briefly at his sensei in the crowd. His sensei nodded to show that he was okay with what had happened. It was against the rules for Lee to do what he was about to do, but since Sasuke was using a power that many people would say was never meant to be used, it was only fair that Lee also pulled out all the stops. "Have you had enough, loser? With this power and my Sharingan, I am unbeatable, and nothing you do in the form of taijutsu will stop me from winning," Sasuke said in an arrogant tone. "Don't be so sure, Sasuke-san. I haven't shown you my full strength yet. Now I will, and I'll show you what a genius who works hard can do against a prodigy like you," Lee said as he took the weights off his legs, leaving a hole in the ground, which surprised almost everyone who saw it. When Kakashi saw the craters on both sides of Lee, he asked Guy, "Really? How much weight did you put on each limb?" "More than enough to increase his speed beyond what the Sharingan can handle, my rival. Don't forget, I spent a lot of time training and studying the Sharingan in my own way, despite the objections of the Uchiha clan when they found out. I taught Lee a lot about the power of the dojutsu and how to counter its power should myself or Lee be fighting a Uchiha in combat, Chunin exams or not. So I taught him what I knew, and..." While they talked, Lee did push Sasuke back with brutal blows that came faster than the curse seal could fix by accident. Even with the Sharingan and the power of the curse seal, Sasuke was having trouble beating Lee at this point. Not only that, but Lee didn't look tired at all. He looked like he could go another 10 rounds with him without showing the slightest sign of being tired. It didn't make sense to Sasuke because his opponent was no one, didn't do anything useful, and had been the worst student at the academy. Even his own father thought Rock Lee was weak and stupid because he couldn't use chakra like other shinobi. Still, Lee was kicking around the youngest son of the noble Uchiha clan head like he was a ball. How could someone so low on the totem pole have so much power? It wasn't right. How? How does he have so much strength? Why am I such a wimp? Where do I go wrong? Sasuke thought before he was hit in the face several times and knocked out. Genma yelled, "Winner, Rock Lee." As the crowd around him was shocked to see last year's last-place finisher beat this year's Rookie of the Year. But the people who knew the boy cheered for him to win. "Rock Lee is quite skilled," Maleficent said with a smile. Itachi said, "I've heard that the boy can't use chakra like other ninja. He can only use taijutsu." Maleficent nodded. "Lee would be a very strong warrior if he trained with swords or maybe a spear," Naruto said, and Maleficent nodded her head in agreement. "I'm surprised his sensei doesn't say more about that." "Maybe he will later, if they survive the invasion that's coming," Maleficent said as she looked at the fake cage and saw that the Sannin behind the robes was angry that his future ship had lost to nobody. "He's going to attack Konoha soon," said Naruto, who could feel Orochimaru's feelings from where they stood in the arena. The Sannin's anger over Sasuke's loss had grown a lot since Sasuke's loss. Maleficent told her children, the girls, Itachi, Anko, and the samurai guards who were with her, get ready for the real fight. Most of the time, the matches went as fast as was expected. Kankuro lost to Shino because he wasn't ready to show his hand because the invasion was coming up soon. Neji fought Dosu and had to use his Kaden because the sound bracers the mummy boy wore on his hands were more powerful than the Hyuga prodigy had thought. Neji's taijutsu skills were almost useless because he could hit the bracers with his hands and cause sound-based feedback that could hurt him. He made progress thanks to his secret weapon, which he had been training to master in secret for the whole month. Still, Neji thought it was a win, and he once again talked about how fate had helped him fight his enemies. Maleficent thought she was such a proud brat. When she had the chance, she should have had her son cut off his head. So be it. Maybe someday, if I had the time, Orochimaru didn't send the message to Kabuto until after Temari had fought Shikamaru and lost, by giving up. The man hid in the shadows, pretending to be one of the Anbu security guards he had killed in secret, and waited for Orochimaru to give him the signal. Eventually, the Sannin did give the signal, and the genjutsu fell on the people in the arena. Explosions soon shook both the inside and outside of Konoha. It started, Gaara said as his sand started to move on its own and immediately attacked sound shinobi who were coming to attack the high-class clients who had been around them the whole time. Indeed. This genjutsu used to make everyone sleep who are not ninja as annoying. Let's see how this enemy of Konoha fares when the samurai guarding us are awakened, said Maleficent, as Itachi along with Anko made sure their samurai guards were awakened from the genjutsu before stomped her staff onto the ground, and unleashed a shockwave of magical energy that destroyed the genjutsu. Karen asked Maleficent, "Why are we helping Konoha?" As she smirked and blew away a few Suna shinobi with a wave of her hand. "We're not helping them. We just want Konoha to suffer on our terms, not the snakes," Maleficent said as she watched the battle rage around her and looked over at the arena wall where she could feel chakra being used to summon something. Itachi said, "I had a shadow clone watching the walls, mistress." Orochimaru gave Suna shinobi temporary snake summoning contracts to call large snake summons to break through the village walls. These summons are coming this way and will reach the walls in just a few minutes. I see. Well, we can't have that, Maleficent said with a frown. Then she had an idea, and she started chanting her spell while spinning her staff in a circle in her hand. Itachi asked the mistress, "What are you doing?" As he and a few other people, including the daimyos who were with them, watched in awe as she used her power to make things appear out of thin air. Their grave will be a forest of thorns. They will come from the sky on a fog of doom. Now go with the curse and serve me well. Cast by spell around Konohagakure no Sato's walls. Maleficent yelled as a single large dark cloud appeared and grew over Konoha's walls. Before the lightning from the dark storm clouds hit the ground with such force in different places that the ground opened up to show a wall of thorns that grew slowly. To be exact, a huge number of thorns that are all different sizes and shapes. Even so, the two charging three-headed snake summons didn't care and crashed into the thorns, thinking they could break through them and then Konoha's walls. Unfortunately, the two big summons that were attacking Konoha didn't realize how sharp and able to pierce the thorns really were. Add to that the fact that the thorns were all magic-based, and they became even more dangerous. When the two three-headed snakes charged the wall, they were easily pierced by the thorns. The more they moved around in pain, the more they got hurt by the thorns. Even though they beat on the wall, they never got past the thorns and into the village. One Chunin at a lookout post next to Morino Ibiki, who was looking at the scene through binoculars, asked, "What just happened?" "It's simple. We had an unlikely ally who helped us, someone who should have helped our enemies instead of Konoha," said Ibiki as he heard from the wall that Suna and Sound Shinobi were trying but failing to get over the thorns. Because the thorns would suddenly grow and stab these shinobi when they all rushed up the thorns at once to use them as a ladder to get over Konoha's wall. When it was time to send out a cleaning crew, it would be a very bloody sight to see from outside the village. Back in the arena, Naruto was cutting through the Suna, Sound, and even a few Konoha shinobi with his trusty sword. The last of the three attacked him because the Sandaime had told them to grab the Gaki and take him to a safe place where he could be restrained so that he could be properly reconditioned to be the village's weapon. Behind him, Gaara was angry at a number of shinobi who had shot at his surrogate mother. He made sure these idiots knew how much they regretted their actions before crushing them with his sand. Tayuya and Karen were each doing their own thing. Tayuya was playing her flute, and Karen was using chakra chains in a way that Kurama reluctantly admitted Naruto's biological mother could use them. Maleficent came to the conclusion that some Uzumaki clan members had the gift in the past, but it was a dormant power locked away in most of them because not everyone in the clan could bring it out. She also thought that once it came out, the body would learn to do it on its own, and with the right training, the mind would learn how to do it on command. This is something else that Karen had been doing in secret over the past month. It wasn't clear if Tayuya could bring it out or not. Maleficent thought it would depend on the person's skills, how they liked to fight, and maybe even their personality. Still, Maleficent should have kept an eye on it if Karen's skill with the chains piercing ninja and her ability to throw them around by whipping them away was any indication. When you talk about Maleficent, she was also fighting. She used her power to blast anyone who got past her bodyguards and surrogate family. By firing lightning from her staff at them or just wiping them out with a wave of her hand. To make things even more interesting, at least for her, Maleficent called on the power of nature to help her attack. This made a giant dragon come out of the ground and roar loudly, just like the one Hashirama could make with Mokuton. It actually stopped a lot of fighting for a while, and some shinobi on both sides thought Hashirama's spirit had come back from the dead and was protecting the village from being destroyed. In that way, they weren't totally wrong. Booth, cage. Interesting. Someone outside of the Senju clan is able to do that. If I had to guess who did it, I'd say Maleficent, said Orochimaru from inside the barrier that his Sound 4 had built around him, Sarutobi, and Jiraiya to keep them from running away. On top of that, Orochimaru had called Hashirama, and Tobirama was also a very important part of this story. At first, Orochimaru was worried that Jiraiya would get in the way of his plans to kill the sensei they shared. He was also worried that Tsunade would get in the way of his plans because he knew she was in the arena as the Chunin exam's doctor. Imagine his surprise when he found out that Jiraiya's skills had gotten a lot worse without the Toad's help. This means that the Senin Moto that the idiot was said to have learned before him was lost and much weaker. Tsunade wasn't outside the barrier, which meant she either didn't want to get involved or was fighting in the stands below. Given what was going on at the time, it didn't really matter. Orochimaru didn't really have a problem with Tsunade, and she didn't like Jiraiya or Hiruzen right now. But if she saw two of her family members brought back from the dead, she might take it personally. Now that he thought about it, it was better that she wasn't here. The woman's anger was not to be questioned, especially when she was mad enough to punch you so hard that your body would explode on impact. It looks like someone knows how to use the Mokuton better than you do, brother, Tobirama said as Hashirama squatted down with a sad aura around him and rain clouds forming over his head. Hashirama muttered, "That's just not fair," when he found out that someone who wasn't part of the Senju clan could use his bloodline better than he could. When Tobirama saw how sad his brother was, he thought, some things never change. A drop of sweat formed on his forehead. As funny as it is to see the Shodem Hokage acting like this, I have a better job for the two of you: kill your successor and student. Someone who let the clan your wife is from die after becoming Hokage, Orochimaru said before putting a seal tag in each of their heads. Tobirama asked, "What?" as his body was being brought back to its best. His usually calm frown turned into a scowl, and his brother did the same. Hiruzen said, "It's not true, sensei," while Hashirama narrowed his eyes at him. Hashirama said, "You're lying, Hiruzen. I could always tell when you were lying by the small twitch above your right eye and on your left hand," as Hiruzen twitched more noticeably. "I still have that weakness after all this time. I thought that my years of experience and knowledge would help me get rid of them," Hiruzen thought as he watched his two senseis get more and more angry by the second. And that's not even the worst thing Hiruzen has done. "I could tell you all of his dirty little secrets, but I think it would be better if you beat them out of him," said Orochimaru before he snapped his fingers and watched the first two Hokages charge their successor. So began Hiruzen's fight to stay alive. Outside of Konoha, the invading army wasn't just fighting hard in the arena or outside the village walls. Deep in the forest of death, old creatures that had been forgotten for a long time woke up when they heard the call of the person they used to serve. Her power woke them up again. Slowly, these wild animals came out of the forest of death and broke down the gate that kept the many dangerous animals there from attacking the people. When their mistress asked them to fight and protect her again in the heat of battle, these wild animals roared with vengeful rage and charged into the village, ready to kill anyone who got in their way. They were glad to have another chance to help Maleficent. This army of spear-wielding living trees, giant moss-covered warthogs, and other strange creatures that seemed to grow almost from the ground smashed through anything that got in their way. Quite a few Suna and Sound Shinobi had left the arena to do damage to Konoha's internal structures, like the market and the residential homes. They even attacked a few clan homes to see if they could get some clan secrets. Only to be beaten by this group of monsters that Maleficent had sent to help her in this fight. Of course, this didn't mean that Konoha itself was safe from the wrath of these nature-based monsters that were destroying everything in their path. No. On the way to the arena, a lot of damage was done to homes. Most of the damage was done to civilian homes, and some of the monsters threw huge rocks or pieces of the ground they tore off while running to the arena, which did a lot of damage to the homes. Many of the Konoha shinobi quickly moved out of the way when they saw what was happening. Maleficent's large army smashed right into the arena, stopping many shinobi in their tracks. They were shocked to see such creatures appear out of nowhere. Even worse, the shinobi from Suna and Sound had to deal with most of this new threat, while the few Konoha shinobi who were stupid enough to attack them were crushed under their feet. At this point, the huge dragon that Maleficent had called up from the ground roared in anger before charging through the chaos of the fighting. It eventually went up, then came down on the cage booth and broke through the barrier that Orochimaru's guards had set up. All but one, an albino with silver hair named Kimimaro, were killed. Hiruzen was clearly having a very bad day right now, and his fight with Hashirama was even worse. Since the two former Hokages of Konoha could choose who they fought, as long as they fought, Tobirama chose to fight Jiraiya so that his brother could beat some answers out of Hiruzen and find out the truth. And Hashirama sure did beat the truth out of Hiruzen. The Sandaime Hokage was able to call on Enma to fight Hashirama, but his former sensei easily got through his defenses and knocked the Monkey King right out of his hands. Not only that, but the Sandaime Hokage could see that Hashirama was not going to hold back in the fight, even though he had a seal tag in his head. Hashirama held back in the taijutsu spars he had with his students, which was a secret that only Tobirama knew. Even when Hiruzen was a fully grown adult before the Shoden's death, Hashirama still didn't say anything. Tobirama once asked his brother why he didn't fight Hiruzen when he was an adult, even though the boy had grown up. Hashirama told his brother Hiruzen that if he tried his hardest every time, Hiruzen would see how far behind he was and lose motivation to keep trying. Hashirama had told his brother that he thought Hiruzen could become a great Hokage in the future if he was given enough time and training. But the Senju had also seen that Hiruzen had a sort of ego that, if deflated or horribly popped, would make the young Sarutobi lose interest in trying harder at something. In some ways, Sarutobi Hiruzen could have had an ego like a Uchiha, but not as much as one, as long as nothing happened to hurt the man's own ego. So Hashirama held back in his spars so Hiruzen would think he was getting stronger, which he was, but the man still had a long way to go before he could match the Shoden Hokage in taijutsu and overall battle skills. Hashirama, in this summoned state of Edo Tensei, didn't have any plans to hold back this time. In his search for the truth, the former Shoden Hokage was cruel and beat the Sandaime Hokage until his sandaled feet were bloody. The Senju had a look on his face that could melt steel. It was a simple but painful way to show the man he had just beaten that there was a reason Hashirama was as feared as he was respected as a Hokage of Konoha. You betrayed my wife and her clan. You betrayed my teachings. You are not worthy of being Hokage, Hashirama said before grabbing the man by the throat and punching him in the ribs so hard that he broke them with each blow. He then slammed Hiruzen to the ground. It was a necessary evil. Konoha needed to stay the strongest of the 5 shinobi villages. The Uzumaki clan was getting stronger every day. It wouldn't have been long before they risked becoming their own ninja village. They would have upset the balance by demanding the Kyuubi back, since only an Uzumaki can hold the Biju. They were only a threat to Konoha if this village used the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki for the wrong reasons, like abusing them or using them as weapons of war, said Hashirama, while Hiruzen scowled at him. So what if I did? Jinchuriki are used for war all the time. Abused all the time. Do you think the people in Konoha care about what or how a Jinchuriki feels? They don't. The purpose of a Jinchuriki is to fight for the village they serve and be tools of war. Anything else is a pipe dream and fantasy made by idealists who are blind to the true nature of how humans act. Stated Hiruzen while struggling to get up and vomited some blood in the process. Hashirama whispered, "You betrayed everything I taught you," while Hiruzen glared at him. You turned your back on Konoha because you loved the Uzumaki clan and your wife. When she became the first Jinchuriki, you should have given her a weapon. Instead, you kept her away from it and told your brother that this is how Jinchuriki should be in the future. I won't agree with a fool who thinks that a living weapon like a Jinchuriki should be loved like a real person. Hiruzen yelled before using hand signs to make 2 shadow clones of himself. Then your will of fire has been dead or broken for a long time, Hiruzen. Hashirama said, as Hiruzen growled at him, you are now just a vile soul of a human stain in this world, just like those who follow your own corrupt beliefs. Maybe, he said. But I can at least deal with it. But you and your brother are not. I don't care if the people of Konoha write about me in their history books as a great person who was even better than his 2 predecessors. Even more so when I finally beat you, Tobirama and Orochimaru with a powerful jutsu that can do such a thing if I do it right. Hiruzen exclaimed as his shadow clone grabbed Hashirama tightly and his shadow clone to his left grabbed Tobirama from behind with the same force. When the Sandaime Hokage saw his chance, he attacked Orochimaru with what little strength he still had. At the time, Orochimaru was focused on some of the Anbu who had attacked after the barrier was broken. Kimimaro tried to help his master, but the old Hokage was already making hand signs for the jutsu he was about to use before he grabbed Orochimaru, and Jiraiya moved to block the albino. Stupid monkey. I don't stop you because I'm not able to. Because I want this to happen, I don't stop you. Hashirama thought, both Tobirama and I must pay for your sins just as much as you do. But he couldn't get out of Shadow Clone's grip. At that moment, the Shinigami, in all of his greatness, was called to the mortal world and saw his targets, which were sure to be taken once he reached through each body of the Sandaime Hokage. This was because of something simple but unknown about the Shadow Clone. Jutsu is more than just splitting up the chakra that was used to make it. It also split your soul into pieces and put them in each clone. This is why each clone had its own personality and could act like the original. At the same time, Hiruzen also realized a horrifying and painful truth about what was about to happen, and it seemed like time slowed down at the realization. He was thinking about the time he had talked to Maleficent and the conversation turned into the witch cursing him. One in which he would use the jutsu to call the Shinigami and kill Orochimaru while he and Orochimaru were fighting constantly in the deity's stomach. Almost a month after she put a curse on him, it came true. Damn that girl. I had to do this because of her. It's important to her plans that she knows. Tsunade should be the Hokage, but Jiraiya was supposed to stay close to her to make sure she listened to his advice. Since the Toads just broke their contract with him because they want Naruto to be a summoner, he is now weaker than I had hoped. This means that he won't be able to keep Tsunade as long as I had hoped. Worse, Danzo might see this as a way to try to get the hat or get Tsunade to do what he wants. If not, make things happen in the shadows so that his advice is the most important one, Hiruzen thought as Orochimaru struggled to get away from his sensei but couldn't. No. Quit it. I'm not going to let you kill me. I'm like God. I will never die. I'm not going to die this way. Orochimaru protested, and he could feel the Shinigami's hold on his soul and Hiruzen's before he slowly pulled them out. The Sannin were trying to get away. Considering how badly his sensei beat Hashirama and how old the man was, he should have been able to get away without much trouble. But something else was going on. There was something else holding them in place besides Hiruzen and the Shinigami. Orochimaru looked around and saw that Hiruzen's arms were locked in place by a light green coating of energy. This helped the old man make sure that the Shinigami got all of the Sannin. Not only a little bit of him. It seemed like some other supernatural force was affecting what was happening and even changing what was supposed to happen in this important moment. Orochimaru put all the pieces together thanks to his sharp mind. He looked into the stadium, where, from where he stood, he could see the shape of Maleficent looking back. The woman was safe and sound with the daimyos and other high-ranking nobles who were sitting nearby. The hired samurai and ninjas around them had done a good job of protecting the wealthy people who usually hired them for different services. And when the woman looked at him, it was her face that made the snake Sannin realize that his theory about how he was going to die soon was correct. She had sharp eyes. Even her smile was mean. Hiruzen's power was shining with a hint of the same ethereal green that was around the woman. She had done something before the fight to make sure that this would be the end for him and Sensei. Orochimaru couldn't say how she did it, and he couldn't even think about it because the Shinigami had taken his soul and that of his Sensei and was eating them both. At that moment, the pale snake Sannin could only scream in pain, his face contorting in horror to match how bad the jutsu hurt him. As for the two previous Hokages, their souls were also ripped out of the bodies they were holding, revealing the chosen sacrifices behind their bodies. Who were both also dead. Sensei, Jiraiya whispered in shock as Kimimaro ran by and kneeled at Orochimaru's feet. Hello, Orochimaru. Orochimaru-sama. Yelled Kimimaro when he saw that the Sannin's dead body had a look of horror and death on it. They heard a funny laugh that sounded like a woman laughing, and when they turned around, Maleficent was standing there in all her glory. She looked amused and happy about how things turned out, with the Sandaime Hokage killing Orochimaru. No doubt because he used a powerful jutsu that was against the rules and required the user to sacrifice himself in order to use it. The woman just seemed to look at the two adult bodies before she turned her attention to the two used by the Sannin. What a waste of life on the part of the Sannin. You might think that a boss who tries to cheat death would do the same for his employees. Sad to say, this was what selfish and stupid people did. In her mind, it was good that he was dead. One less piece of dirty, wrongdoing people in the world. Jiraiya growled, Maleficent, as Maleficent herself looked over at him. Hi, Jiraiya. I see that you're still around. How? Disappointing it is to see you made it through this, Maleficent said to the badly hurt man as he kept staring at her. I can't be killed that easily. I know you were responsible for this happening. I saw that my sensei's arms were surrounded by a strange green. You made sure he killed Orochimaru by sacrificing himself, Jiraiya said, as Kimimaro looked at the woman in question. You did this to Orochimaru-sama? Kimimaro asked in a quiet voice that held a hint of anger. Oh, come on. You think way too much of me. No matter what happened, these two were going to fight. I just made sure that the right answer was given. Orochimaru had been alive for too long, and Hiruzen had to pay for what he had done to Konoha, said Maleficent, while Jiraiya was not happy and Kimimaro looked very angry. Kimimaro yelled, "Die!" and then ran at the woman, aiming to spear her with the bone he had pulled from the palm of his hand. Sleep. Maleficent said quickly, and the spell caused the Kaguya to fall into a deep sleep as soon as his head hit the ground. You're not going anywhere, Jiraiya said when she saw Maleficent use her magic to lift Kimimaro's body off the ground and leave with her prize. Oh? Who was there to stop me? You? Asked Maleficent, seeing that the Anbu were still nearby and ready to hit her. And everyone in Konoha was loyal to my late sensei, Jiraiya said, and Maleficent just laughed. Oh, I'm sure they'd fight me if it weren't for the fact that they'd lose the whole village if they did, said Maleficent, while Jiraiya frowned. Jiraiya asked, what are you talking about? He then saw a masked Haku appear through an ice mirror, and his eyes got very big when he saw that she was holding the forbidden scroll of sealing. My little army is still in the arena, but Haku is very good at getting into places that most people can't get into unless something else is going on. When she was in the Hokage's office earlier, she found out a lot. Outside of hurting my son, your Sandaime Hokage has done so many bad things over the years. I have enough information to start another war that your village won't be able to win. All of your enemies will join forces to crush this village to the ground. Because of what Konoha has done in the past, even your remaining allies will leave you, and some will definitely become your enemies, said Maleficent, while Jiraiya glared at her words, knowing they were true. Fine. You're free to go, but the albino will stay with us. He's a prisoner of Konoha, Jiraiya said, and Maleficent frowned at his request. No. I own him. I think this one has a lot of promise. Something that won't be useful while you are in Konoha. Not to mention that I have to take off the curse seal that Orochimaru put on his chest. What a horrible little thing. Such a strange thing he made, said Maleficent, as the dragon that had broken through the barrier woke up again to be the woman's way of getting around. Jiraiya looked at Naruto and Gaara, who were waiting for Maleficent to come back, and thought, I hope he kills you when you wake up. During all of this, Orochimaru's right-hand man Kabuto was hiding in the shadows while wearing his Anbu disguise. There was no reason to force him to admit that he was the late Sannin's subordinate while the trick was still working. Danzo was the only person who knew the truth, but he would never say how he knew what he knew. After all, the man had hired Kabuto from the orphanage to work for him until Orochimaru showed up. Sasori finally got a hold of him so he could use him as a spy, but Orochimaru took Kabuto back right in front of Sasori's eyes and made him his own spy. After he left the Akatsuki, it had helped Orochimaru a lot to have Kabuto by his side. Not only did the boy seem like he could learn enough about medicine to possibly beat Tsunade, but he was also a secret way for Sasori to keep an eye on the Akatsuki when she went to Kabuto and find out what the group was up to in terms of how they planned to get the Biju from their Jinchuriki. Now, the medic Nin was pretty much on her own. He could go back to Rice Country or to one of Orochimaru's labs. If he did that, Danzo's root agents might try to follow him, or he might try to force Kabuto back into the group by bringing him back. The spy wouldn't be surprised if Danzo had a way to do this, since the old Warhawk had a couple of Yamanakas in Root. Kabuto thought that if Root ever caught him, his mind would be drained of all its knowledge, wiped clean, and then reworked to make him almost like a puppet with no feelings. He didn't want it to happen to him, but it did. From now on, I will have to be careful. Orochimaru was wrong to think that this woman was weaker than him, thought Kabuto as he moved back into the shadows, where he would be safe from Konoha forces or Maleficent and her army of monsters that were based on nature. He thought so, anyway. Itachi asked the spy in a mask, going somewhere, Kabuto?
Itachi, how did you find me?
Kabuto asked as he took off his mask. He was sure that his disguise could fool almost anyone, and it had until now. I found you before the invasion even started. Your chakra signature was burned into my Sharingan a long time ago, so it wasn't hard to find you even when there were a lot of people around. You were one of the few people here in the stadium with Junin-level chakra reserves. The fact that Hiruzen missed you being a spy for Orochimaru all this time and taking the Chunin exams 7 times was more proof that he was losing his mind in his old age. Like you said, Itachi, the old Sandaime Hokage was getting weaker with age. 10 years ago, could the invasion have been successful? The answer is no. Back then, the Sandaime's mind was still quite sharp. That's why Orochimaru-sama didn't challenge him until now. He was slipping. He was so obsessed with controlling Uzumaki Naruto that it went to his head, and Jiraiya of the Sannin didn't help. Talking about some prophecy that may or may not happen. Even worse, I suspect Jiraiya wants to manipulate such a prophecy so Konoha comes out unscathed. Such things are frowned upon by the deities above, and Maleficent has told me that powerful beings take such actions by mortal. Well, it doesn't matter. One day, I'll be one of these gods. I'll be what Orochimaru-sama wanted but couldn't be because of his own limitations. Soon, I'll be among the gods of old, Kabuto said with confidence, since he was sure that with his master's notes and teachings, immortality, if not godhood, was not far away. Itachi replied, "Really? That's hard to do when you're dead." Kabuto frowned and took a more defensive stance. "And who is going to kill me? You? You may be strong, Itachi, but I doubt your skills can match mine. I know how to beat the Sharingan. I know how the human body works. I can take anything you throw at me and come back for more," said Kabuto, making Itachi raise an eyebrow. "Actually, I was thinking that the honor of killing you and Orochimaru's dark legacy would go to someone else Orochimaru knew in the past. Unlike you, she has no intention of continuing your master's quest for something that should be left to the higher beings of the universe," Itachi said. Kabuto's eyes widened, and he turned around just as Anko, in her snake form, landed on his head. And then it bit Kabuto right in the head. The poison from her teeth went right to his brain. Even worse for the man, Itachi caught him in a genjutsu that stopped his body from moving and made it tighten on its own based on how much pain it was in after being cast. Since Kabuto was in a lot of pain at the moment, his body was probably very stiff inside and wouldn't move for a while. Even if the man could heal, he couldn't stop this without being able to focus. Which was hard to do since Anko had just made his brain's pain centers light up like a Christmas tree. Anko herself took her snake mouth off of the man's head, turned back into a person, and grabbed the man by the throat. The two people stared each other down. Someone hurt. The other person didn't feel anything when she snapped his neck with a hard twist and then bent it at an angle just for good measure. "Heal that asshole. Your ability to heal doesn't mean squat if your brain can't give the order. While your ability is similar to an Uzumaki or even a Jinchuriki, the difference is that they can do it on their own. Itachi kept a close eye on you in the few times you got hurt. You need to focus your mind to tell your body to heal, which means that without the brain working, you are as good as dead." Itachi said, "Mistress has successfully taken care of Kimimaro. Haku has the scrolls and information we need to keep the village under control. Once the other nobles and daimyos are given permission to leave Konoha, we will probably leave within an hour." He then used a fire jutsu to burn Kabuto's body. There's no point in taking a chance on this second snake Sannin in training being able to get better. Anko was interested in Gaara's siblings and their sensei. All of them were caught by Gaara himself during the last part of the fight. Depending on how things go, they may be taken back to Nami, where Maleficent-sama will decide what will happen to them, Itachi calmly replied, and Anko nodded. Fair enough. Hopefully, Gaara will be able to get back in touch with his siblings and even that girl Matsuri if he gets the chance. Suna has lost a lot in all of this, so I wouldn't be surprised if Iwa or Kumo showed up soon to finish them off, Anko said, and Itachi nodded in agreement. Itachi told them, "Come, we need to get back together with the others. Naruto-sama has some of his own business to take care of before we go to Nami." Then he and the other boy walked away. With Naruto eventually. "Get out of the way, boy. I'm here for her, and people like you won't be able to stop me," Hiyashi said angrily as he stood next to him with other members of the Hyuga clan, some of whom were branch members. "Why?" asked Naruto, pointing his sword at Hiyashi and keeping Hinata behind him as he glared at the man. "So you can put the seal on her? To make her a slave in all but name?" Shortly after the people defending the village beat back the attacking allied army, even if it was just to leave the village in the future, Naruto found Hinata and saw that her so-called father was about to take her away. The girl tried to fight, But Hiyashi was there with several other clan members, all of whom were adults and very good at using gentle fist to take people down. They also didn't mind hurting Hinata in the least if she tried to fight back too much. As for Hiyashi, he found out that the man who had said the girl was his child no longer thought of her as his child. It would be sad, if it weren't so sad, to see this man treat his oldest daughter like a total jerk. Seriously, how did this guy even get a woman to like him, let alone get her to help him have a child, let alone two? Naruto doesn't understand how Hiyashi could treat Hinata this way. When you have a noble clan that accepts or even encourages indirect inbreeding to keep the bloodline pure, it doesn't come as much of a surprise that stupidity is a common trait among its members. Hinata seemed to be one of the clan members who skipped this trait. Small miracles are all thanks to Kami. I see my former daughter told you what was going to happen after the Chunin exams. That's all the more reason to punish her now that she has the curse seal. Some hard work will stop her from doing things like that in the future, Hiyashi said, while Hinata flinched at his cold gaze but kept looking at him with a defiant look. She didn't tell me anything. I knew before we even talked, after your clan's secret decree was made. If you insist on branding her with the cage bird seal, I will have to demand that this practice not only stop, but that all the main family members who follow this tradition be put to the sword, Naruto said, making Hiyashi sputter in anger. Hiyashi asked, on what grounds? As Naruto grinned. Because your cage bird seal is a messed up version of what my clan gave your clan all those years ago, when they came to Uzu looking for a way to protect the Byakugan from other clans. Or have the Hyuga forgotten or left out that part of their history? Naruto shot back, making Hiyashi's eyes widen and the elder next to him look angry. The Hyuga elder next to Hiyashi yelled, blasphemy. And looked like a rabid dog as he did so. Most likely because he knew what he said was true. Is it? I have more than enough evidence to suggest otherwise. I have a copy of the legally binding document that says the Hyuga clan won't change the seal in any way. Your clan soon broke the deal and used the fact that Uzu fell to keep my mother from enforcing the contract you broke. A contract she didn't even know about because she was a child when Uzu fell, Naruto said, as Hiyashi and the rest of his clan ran away. If he or Maleficent decide to tell the Fire Daimyo about this, we will have to stop the practice or, worse, change the seal back to how it was before. Also, the Branch family could have their seals broken, which could start a civil war from the inside. If that happens, our numbers would drop by a lot, Hiyashi thought, while Naruto just smiled at him as if he already knew what the older man was thinking. I'm taking Hinata-chan back to Nami with me, under the protection of myself and the Uzumaki clan. You want to fight me about this? Go ahead and try. You will lose, and you will lose badly. Naruto told the Hyuga in front of him in a tone that made it clear he was dead serious. Hiyashi, on the other hand, just clenched his teeth in anger. This spoiled brat had proof that the Hyuga clan had broken a contract. One that they were able to keep secret, in part because Hiruzen was the Sandaime Hokage during his first reign. When Minato became Hokage, the issue had been brought up several times, mostly by Kushina, who was best friends with both Hiyashi's and Fugaku's wives. By making friends with the wives of the clan heads, the woman tried to change things she thought were cruel in other clans. As if everything the Hyuga did was cruel. Bah. What would that trashy island whore know about how a noble clan like his did things? When Kushina first brought it up, Hiyashi knew it would be a problem in the future. He needed Hiruzen's and Jiraiya's help to convince Minato to keep the issue closed, even if it was just for now. In reality, Jiraiya had to tell Minato that while removing the cage bird seal was done with good intentions, it opened up a floodgate of sorts when it came to clan affairs and the possibility of a civil war between the main and branch families of the Hyuga clan. Hiyashi insisted, and Hiruzen agreed, that there was so much bad blood in the clan that changing things would not be in the best interest of Konoha as a whole. Most of the time, the excuse worked, but Kushina wasn't going to give up. She even offered to make a new seal that everyone in the Hyuga clan could wear. Bah. The woman has guts. Hiyashi didn't cry a single tear when she died. In fact, he was quite happy that Kushina couldn't cause him or the clan any more trouble. Not only that, but her stupid son would have no idea what was going on and would never learn about Fuinjutsu like she and Mito did. But then Maleficent showed up and messed everything up. It was as if the gods had made a secret plan to set things in motion and had lured Naruto to where Maleficent was hiding so that the brat could free her. There were some things that even gods should leave alone and not get involved in the lives of humans. At least, that's how Hiyashi saw the situation. Fine, take her. Take my failure of a child away. I have a younger, more suitable heiress to replace her, one who will carry on my legacy as the future of the Hyuga clan, Hiyashi said in a bitter tone. The Hyuga elder told Hiyashi, you can't be serious. Because Hinata hadn't been branded with the cagebird seal and could put the clan's secrets at risk. We have no choice, elder. Even if we gave Hinata the seal, I'm sure Naruto or Maleficent would take it off right away before they left Konoha. If we tried to stop them, things would get out of hand, and the dispute would be handled by the daimyos of our countries. With the information the boy has on the Hyuga clan, we would lose the argument, and he could make any demand of us to pay off the debt. Hinata whispered, you didn't have to do this, as she saw Naruto turn his head to look at her. But I want to help you, Hinata. You have the potential to be great. You just need the right way to bring it out. Your father didn't know how because he was too proud to see the truth. He fears change. Your whole family fears it. That's why they have been trying so hard to keep things from changing within the clan because they won't know how to handle it. Hinata said with a sad face, I still don't know why you want to be my friend. I don't deserve it, and I'm not even strong by anyone's standards. Naruto made a small frown. Not even your sensei? If I'm not mistaken, she cares a lot about you, Naruto said. Hinata nodded, but she was still sad. Hinata told Naruto, she cares, but sometimes I think she cares too much. I want to train hard and get stronger, but I understand. Your sensei doesn't want you to train too hard. I think she fears you will burn yourself out. Still, I highly doubt that is the case. Besides, how can a flower truly bloom beautifully if the gardener doesn't nurture it to do so? While your sensei does nurture your talents, she sadly isn't doing enough. Not surprising since I imagine your sensei has only been a sensei for a short time, replied Naruto with Hinata nodding. Hinata said, I heard a rumor that she was a sensei to a girl from a much smaller clan before she ended it, but I've never been able to confirm that it's true. Naruto listened to this with great interest. Naruto asked Hinata, who was thinking about it, do you know the name of the minor clan? Hinata said, I think it was the Kurama clan, which made Naruto's eyes go wide. Kuma, do you hear that? Naruto thought, there is a clan in Konoha named after you. Kurama himself was snarling. Kurama got angry and said, Bah. They have no right to use my name as part of their clan. I say kill them all and let Kami figure it out. Hey, Kurama, try to be nice. Naruto thought, they probably don't even know that's your name. They just call themselves that because it's in their clan's bloodline. Kurama was complaining that it was unfair that he got it right. Hinata asked, am I really going to Nami with you, Naruto-kun? She knew that if what he said was true, her friends and teammates would not be happy with her leaving. People here still hate me for being a Jinchuriki, and the fact that you are my friend only makes them hate you more. Hinata said, I'm sorry. I don't want to be a bother or a weakness for you. Naruto just smiled at her. You're not either of those things, Hinata-chan. Besides, you just need to train in a way that helps to make you stronger. Your clan didn't know how, and sadly your sensei did not know how to bring out your full potential either, since she is a first-time sensei. It wasn't and isn't your fault. With the right teacher, anyone can become strong. I am confident you can be strong too with the right teacher and training, replied Naruto with Hinata's face now beaming with joy. Hinata thought, he thinks I can get strong like him, when she saw Naruto smiling at her even though his face was covered in bandages. Come on, we're going to meet my mother at the gates and then leave. We don't want to keep her and the rest of the family waiting, Naruto said as he took the girl's hand and enjoyed having his first friend right there with him. But the poor boy still didn't understand why it felt stronger on some levels. Hokage Tower A right now. Homura told Tsunade, you have to arrest them. As the new Hokage, you have to do something to punish the daimyo of Nami and her son for what they did. Kaharu agreed and nodded. He's right, Tsunade. Look at the damage that woman did by summoning that army of things. What buildings they didn't destroy, they did in their place, and they hurt quite a few Konoha shinobi in the process. Not only that, but I've heard that Hiyashi has lost his oldest daughter to the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Enough. Since I became Hokage, all I've heard from you is your complaining. I've only had the hat for a few days, and you already think you can boss me around like you're the most powerful person in this village. Tsunade yelled angrily at the three idiots in front of him. Since she became Hokage, they had been bothering her about these things. As soon as she put the hat on, the idiots started to whine and try to tell her to make decisions they would have made instead. How arrogant of them. People kept telling her to attack Nami, capture Naruto, kill Maleficent, and other nonsense, when she knew that Konoha needed to look inward to fix itself. If they worked non-stop, it could take months or even years to clear out the ring of giant thorny trees around Konoha. As the 2 dead giant snake summons showed, it was a good way to protect against giant summons, but it was easy for shinobi to run up and jump over the wall or hide in them long enough to launch a surprise attack. We have that right because we served your predecessors for years and were taught by the first 2 Hokages, said Homura, while Tsunade glared. First of all, you are not on the same level as me. The Hokage is the most powerful person in this village. Period. Second, my grandfather and granduncle were your senseis for a time, and you all failed miserably to uphold their teachings. Namely, letting the whole village know a certain child was a Jinchuriki and not protecting him. If you had, maybe Konoha wouldn't be in such a bad state. That boy is a weapon, Tsunade. All Jinchuriki are weapons of war, like shinobi, but they are meant to be used until they are no longer useful. It is his duty to obey his masters and the weapon holders who run this village, said Danzo, as Tsunade narrowed her eyes at him. Need I remind you, Danzo, that my grandmother was a Jinchuriki and was never thought of as such in Konoha? And if we are going to talk about shinobi as weapons, Danzo, don't think you can call yourself a weapons holder, since you are not the Hokage. I am. If I wanted to, I could order you to march into Iwa and kill the Tsuchikage in a suicide mission from which you would probably never return. Danzo said, I'm retired, Tsunade. I wouldn't be a good choice for such a mission. He was angry that his own words were being used against him and that he was being called a weapon. Yet you have enough energy to go to meetings about the safety and security of the village. You can't be partially retired, Danzo. Either you are all the way retired or you are ready to serve at a moment's notice when your Hokage calls you. If you are retired as you say you are, what business do you have at meetings? She was basically forcing them to change their titles to make them less powerful or leave so that younger people could take over. How dare you? These terms aren't good enough, Tsunade. We also don't have a way to get Kaharu to talk, Homura said, and Tsunade gave him a dirty look. If you don't like it, resign. Tsunade yelled at the 3 elderly people in front of her. My sensei let you get away with a lot of things that I would have never let you do, especially with your plans for my godson. So unless you want me to have you all arrested, I suggest you get out of my sight until tomorrow when this will be discussed in a proper meeting with the other council members, and the clan heads, she said as they. Jiraiya said, they won't make your life easier, Haim, as Tsunade glared at him. As if you would help lighten the load, shot back Tsunade. Jiraiya frowned at her because she seemed to know where he stood on some issues, even though they had been settled. If only Tsunade could think it. No matter what you said, we still need to deal with the Naruto problem in the right way, Jiraiya said as Tsunade's glare got stronger. There is no problem, Jiraiya. Maleficent won against Konoha in a legally binding deal. If we went against what we agreed upon, it would make the village look bad, make the fire daimyo look bad. Do you really think the man is going to protect us at the cost of him losing face with the rest of the world? After everything that's happened with Naruto at the center of it all? Asked Tsunade, with Jiraiya frowning even more. Jiraiya started to say, the prophecy was. But Tsunade cut her off by slamming her fist on her desk in anger. I don't give a damn about some half-baked opium-induced prophecies. I care about my godson, the godson I failed. I care about the village you, those idiots and sensei have royally messed up since taking over after Minato died. Tsunade said with her eyes showing she was angry. Jiraiya said, sensei did nothing wrong. As Tsunade frowned. Really? Care to explain how some of his decisions made Konoha weaker? Asked Tsunade as she gave him a short list of some of the things the man did after he became Hokage again. Changing the rules at Konoha's ninja academy so that students only need to know basic math, Konoha's history, chakra, and basic jutsus.
Shuriken and kunai target practice outside will now only happen once a week instead of 4 times a week.
The tax on shinobi-based goods will go up by 15%. 30% for the biggest clans. Putting less of a tax on goods made by civilians. Shinobi should get harsher punishments if they hurt or arrest civilians without a good reason. Stores owned by civilians can turn down shinobi for any reason they want. Jiraiya said, Sensei would never approve of these things, and Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Are you sure?
I have his signature and seal on each of these approved decisions, and Homura, Kaharu, and Danzo also gave their approval, which means those three idiots knew what he was doing and agreed with it, said Tsunade as her old teammate sighed. But why does Sensei approve of even half of these things? These decisions only help the civilians of the village. I know they are an important part of Konoha, but to this extent? It doesn't make sense. And why would Homura, Kaharu, and Danzo support these decisions? It severely weakens Konoha, and they would never let that happen, Jiraiya asked as Tsunade nodded in agreement. I don't know Jiraiya, but I do know that Sensei has made a lot of mistakes since becoming Hokage again. This is just one of them. I'm still trying to figure out the rest of this crap since I first sat in this chair. In the meantime, I want you to leave Naruto alone and help me with the internal problems Konoha is having right now. Jiraiya was very upset by everything that happened before and during the invasion by the allies. More than either of the two ninja in the room wants to admit. Outside of Konoha, the son of one of his students had grown strong. Under the watchful eyes of a woman with supernatural powers and skills that could even put the sage to shame. The son of Minato was important to Jiraiya. He did do it. But Jiraiya thought that the prophecy and even, to a certain extent, his research for his books were more important than anything else. Jiraiya probably would have trained the boy on one of his trips back to Konoha, but it would have been on his terms and on his timetable. Also, Sensei's plan was for Naruto to live a normal, by Jinchuriki standards, life in the village and learn from the academy. His Junin sensei would continue his training until the Sannin thought the boy was ready for much harder training. At that point, Jiraiya could easily say that he was the kid's godfather and that he was away doing important shinobi work for Konoha to explain why he wasn't there for him. But now, the invasion, the death of their sensei, and the fact that Naruto was not from Konoha and never would be had hit the Sannin hard. Like putting all of Tsunade's legendary strength into her fist so she can punch him really hard. Part of him even had some doubts about the original plan for Naruto, and the fact that the Toads had let him go as soon as they had the chance only made his doubts grow. His sensei gave him the job of making sure Tsunade didn't go off the path Konoha was on, but Jiraiya saw some policies he didn't agree with and was now wondering if the Sandaime Hokage had made the best choices so far. At the very least, Tsunade was right about some of the rules and how they should be changed. What was the point of fighting for Konoha against her enemies if the village didn't have the power to fight those enemies? He wasn't stupid enough to think that Danzo had gotten rid of Root like the Sandaime had ordered. In fact, they were a part of Konoha that wasn't supposed to be written down so that certain things wouldn't be linked to the village. The problem was that Danzo and Root's actions over the past few years had made more enemies than they had defeated, and Jiraiya's spy network was spread too thin and too far apart to keep them from being tracked back to Konoha. It was getting harder because Danzo's emotionless Root drones only knew how to kill people, but they weren't very good at cleaning up after themselves. There was always a trail or some other kind of evidence that could lead back to Konoha. They didn't know how to think outside the box or that other people could do the same to keep track of what they did. Jiraiya's network of spies was always the first to find out about something before it was moved away from the village. But, as I said before, it was getting harder and harder. With Konoha's weak infrastructure and current strength, which is growing at a snail's pace, the village's enemies would soon see a chance to bring it down a few notches. The invasion by the Allies showed that Konoha had been slacking off, and the only reason it was saved was because some powerful people from outside the village happened to be here at the time. It was worse for Konoha than the invasion could have been, even if it had been slightly more successful. HQ Root. Tsunade is looking into Hiruzen's and our decisions about Konoha in the past, said Danzo as Kaharu and Homura frowned. It's clear that the policies that favor the civilians over the shinobi of Konoha bother and confuse her, Homura said, and Danzo nodded. As she should be, since we helped Hiruzen with them each time, said Danzo, while Kaharu mumbled something behind her closed mouth. Even though Tsunade and Jiraiya didn't understand why they did what they did, those who planned it did. Danzo went along with Hiruzen's plan because he thought the whole thing would be good for him. Homura and Kaharu agreed to it because Danzo and Hiruzen agreed on the rules, so they didn't think there was much reason to say no. Since they didn't agree on much, there wasn't much point in trying to stop them from doing the opposite of what they both wanted. The plan as a whole did make Konoha less powerful. Most of the time, this was done by lowering the standards at the academy and putting the Junin sensei in charge of the Genin team. But since the overall skill level of the shinobi they were making since the Yondaime had gone down over the years, it wasn't much of a change. In the past, the academy's policy had been to put out high-quality work instead of a lot of work. The fact that Konoha didn't lose in any of the 3 shinobi wars was proof of that. But after the last shinobi war, Danzo, Homura, Kaharu, and even Hiruzen realized that Konoha's ninja were not as good as they used to be. So, in a quiet way, they started to change things at the academy so that quantity would take the place of quality and the Junin teams would make up the difference. And for a while, it did great things. In Konoha, the number of ninja had nearly doubled or tripled. At the same time, other shinobi villages were afraid to challenge Konoha because of the sudden influx of new ninja. They thought that each genin was as strong as some of their chunin, if not their junin. The other 4 shinobi villages didn't know that Konoha had more ninja, but they didn't know that Konoha had better ninja. In fact, many of the clans in Konoha were taking care of the said quality. So that's why Konoha was always crazy about bloodlines when new ones could be brought into the village. Kumo was the same way, but Konoha did it in a way that was more friendly than Kumo. Kumo was known to have stolen bloodlines from clans and even shinobi villages in the past, though this was never proven. Still, this made a lot of people wonder how Kumo got the bloodlines from these villages and clans. Even more so because Kumo didn't have them before, and because the people with these bloodlines disappeared soon after their clans met the Kumo ambassador. But things were going well because of the fear of too many ninja from Konoha and the belief that training them would be just as good. By the time the genins assigned Junin had done their jobs, they could have made an army of well-trained shinobi who also had experience. But the plan ran into a problem. A problem in the form of the many disasters that happened, with Orochimaru's betrayal and leaving Konoha being the first. Given the Sanin's talents, skills, and experience, this was a big blow. Any village would give up half of its Junin to have one of them in their ranks. It was a good thing that none of them wanted the man because of how cruel he was and why he was wanted in the first place. Second, the Yondaime Hokage and his wife, Uzumaki Kushina, died in a sad way. Just those 2 made Konoha's enemies shiver with fear, and they would never have gone up against the village as long as those 2 were still alive. But when the Kyuubi attacked, they both died, and the attack did a lot of damage to the village as a whole. This made some people very happy. It looked like there was blood in the water, and the sharks could smell it from miles away. When Hiruzen, Homura, Kaharu, and even Danzo talked about this, they came to the conclusion that it was only a matter of time before curious leaders decided to check out how weak the village was after the attack. In order to save face, they got more genin out of the Ninja Academy by lowering the standards even more. Usually, this wouldn't be a problem, since the Junin would take over the training once the genin left the academy. However, the attack killed so many of the experienced ninja who would have been in charge of training the genin, so the Junin they had couldn't train the genin well enough. Not only that, but Konoha needed missions badly to get the money it needed to fix up the village. This cut the number of people who could be senseis even more. The third thing that happened was that the people of Konoha got the crazy idea that they were supposed to run the village. That they are good enough to run a shinobi village. That was like a farmer telling samurai how to be samurai and use a sword. It was crazy. It was a bad idea. It had no chance of spreading through the village. That's what they thought at the time, at least. It turned out that the regular people had more power than anyone wanted to believe. No doubt because, as a whole, Konoha wasn't run by chakra or ninja, but by money. Even so, it wasn't a surprise, since a ninja's job is to be a hired gun, and a place where that happens needs to spend money just as much as it makes. A lot of cash. Like all other kinds of money, they are managed in banks. And, just like all other forms of money during war, debt builds up after the war is over. Even though Konoha won all 3 wars, the debt from each one slowly grew after the Second Shinobi War because the Uzumaki clan was no longer there to help pay it. In fact, the clan had so much money from the treasures buried deep in the ground around Uzu that Konoha could help pay off the debts right away. But when Uzu fell, the minerals there could no longer be used because they were buried so deep in dangerous places. Only an Uzumaki would know how to get them out, and the clan's money was safe in a vault that was said to hold more gold and jewels than any daimyo could ever hope to have in his lifetime. Hiruzen and the others didn't realize this until after they let Uzu fall, and Kushina wouldn't let Konoha use her clan's money to pay off a debt that Konoha had made. A debt owned by the Bank of Fire Country, which is called the Inferno Bank.
This debt was being managed by the current representative of the Civilian Council, who is called the Master of Coin.
A smart man who could give a current missing nin from Taki a run for his money, no pun intended, when it came to everything to do with money that people have to deal with every day. But, unlike a certain missing nin from Taki, this man thought you had to pay what you owed or you would lose more. Given how well the Inferno Bank handled all of Fire Country's major financial matters, even the Fire Daimyo had to give them the respect they deserved and would have drained Konoha dry to pay off the village's debts to the bank. The huge debt was caused by the loans Sandaime gave out when he was Hokage the first and second time. The first time was when he became Hokage during the Second Shinobi War, and the second time was after Kumo's ambassador was killed in the rival village-threatened war. Minato had planned to pay off Konoha's debt from the Third Shinobi War slowly out of his own money as soon as he became Hokage. Thanks to the smart investments that had been made up to that point, it would have taken no more than a few years to pay off everything. But because of his death, Kushina's death, the civilian council representative taking over the businesses they had invested in, and Danzo's spending on his root program, it was getting harder to pay back the loans. Hiruzen's hasty decision to take out another big loan to give Konoha more money in case the deceptive appeasement offer didn't make Kumo happy and Konoha went to war with them made the debt even worse. So Hiruzen, Danzo, Homura, and Kaharu had to give up, in secret, some kind of collateral to pay back the bank for the debts they owed. That is, make some rules that would make the village friendlier to civilians and harder on the shinobi who live there. It was a dirty little secret that Sandaime and his 3 accomplices hoped his successor would not find out. If it was, they had hoped that by that time, the debt would have gone down a lot or been paid off, making the whole thing pointless. Danzo, being the opportunist that he is, saw an opportunity to take advantage of this terrible situation, even though it bothered him that such weak shinobi were protecting Konoha. It actually gave him a chance to see who among the village's weaker shinobi might be a good candidate for root. He could find out which of the weak people had the potential to be strong and get them on his side before Hiruzen, and now Tsunade, did, before it was too late. At this point, Danzo's plan was to get most of the good shinobi from among the weak ones who had made it out of the academy. When the time was right, the War Hawk would attack with his much stronger root army, while the Hokage's much weaker shinobi army was not enough to stop them. Once he did that, Danzo would make sure that how he dealt with the people of Konoha was different. Considering how things were going, he knew that his time would be in the far future, not soon. He had no problem with that. Let Tsunade clean up the mess that Hiruzen, Homura, Kaharu, and, indirectly, himself made for her. It gave him more room to move around and find the best shinobi among the whole group from Konoha. By the time Tsunade found out what was going on, it would be too late for her to stop him, and he would be the rightful Hokage that Konoha needed. We had no choice but to give the civilian council what they wanted. Konoha's debt was getting huge, and Hiruzen had made bad financial decisions both times he was Hokage. It wasn't like we couldn't change our minds once the debt was paid off, said Homura, who knew that while Hiruzen was called the professor for his knowledge of jutsus and power as Hokage, the man had the financial sense of a poorly educated gen. One who failed his math classes over and over again. I know. That's why we're going to let Tsunade clean up this mess, and we're just going to sit back and watch. I've been adjusting to those decisions since they were made without the clan heads knowing, said Danzo, whose root agents were in each clan to keep the clan heads from knowing about such financial changes. What if she finds out the truth? She might ask Jiraiya for help, and his spy network has been known to find things it shouldn't, Homura said, and Kaharu nodded in agreement. It won't matter. Jiraiya is still loyal to the cause of getting the Kyuubi Jinchuriki under the control of the village and dealing with the prophecy he told Hiruzen about years ago. The man will be too busy to do much when the time comes, Danzo said, and Homura and Kaharu nodded. Homura asked Danzo, who was frowning, what about the Uchiha clan? Fugaku wants some kind of justice for the death of his son at the hands of Rock Lee. Uchiha Sasuke lost his fight fairly. He also used the curse seal during the fight, but that wasn't enough to win. Go tell Fugaku that if his son can't win against the previous year's worst student, then his son isn't worthy of being a Uchiha, and Fugaku should deal with Sasuke accordingly. The people of Konoha didn't think that their clans were special, despite what most people think. Their lines of ancestry were. Some of the clan heads and elders in these high-ranking and noble clans didn't seem to realize that they could be easily destroyed. Danzo could destroy, rebuild, and reshape them as he saw fit if they thought they were as smart as he was about clan matters or not. He was the most powerful person in Konoha, and when the time was right, he would let everyone know. When it came to a clan, it didn't matter if you were a Hyuga, Uchiha, Inuzuka, Nara, or anyone else. No matter what they said about their bloodline, in Danzo's cold eyes, they all belonged to him and only him. Hyuga clan compounded after a few days. He was worn out. His muscles hurt from working out all day. The boy had a lot of different feelings inside of him. Even though he was glad Hinata was no longer part of the Hyuga clan or Konoha, he was upset that she wasn't given the caged bird seal. It was almost as if someone had taken his win at the Chunin exam preliminaries and hollowed it out. What was the point of beating Hinata so hard that the results of his work turned out to be bad? Neji sighed as he walked into his room, but he didn't feel the person waiting for him or the seal on the door that kept sounds from escaping. He also didn't know until the figure told him in 2 words. "Hello, Neji," Naruto said in a whisper from behind the shocked Hyuga. Neji was about to say, "You. Wah-ah?" But Naruto's fist moved too fast for him to follow, and he fell to the ground. "Come on, Neji. You didn't think I'd let you off the hook for what you did a month ago, did you?" Naruto asked as chains came out of him and easily wrapped around the Hyuga. Neji said, "Let me go, and I might not do anything about this invasion of the Hyuga clan, my room, and attack on my person," as Naruto pulled the chain toward him and punched the Hyuga in the face again. "You have no right to order or threaten me, Hyuga. The only reason I don't rip out your eyes and cut off your nuts is because Hinata would be upset with that way of punishing you for your past crime," Naruto said, since that was one of the many things he wanted to do to Neji but didn't because of Hinata. Neji asked, "Then why are you here?" As he tried to block out the image of the blonde in front of him doing that. "To hurt you," Naruto said. He then pulled the chain back toward him, grabbed the top part so he could hold Neji in place, and punched the boy in the face for the 3rd time. "Do you think my cousin will let you do this to me?" Neji asked as his face started to swell and blood started to come out of the side of his mouth. "As long as I don't kill you, I think Hinata-chan will let me give you the beating you so rightly need," Naruto said. He then started punching Neji in the face over and over and over again before focusing on the boy's body, even though the Hyuga was bound. Neji said, "You're a fool. You may have saved Hinata from being branded with the cage bird seal for now, but it's only a temporary setback. It is her destiny to be made a servant of the main family. You can't watch over her forever. She's weak. Sooner or later, the main family will bring her back to Konoha and brand the failure with the seal. Didn't your idiot uncle or the elders tell you? I guess not. If they did, you'd know that your assumptions are dead wrong," Naruto said before he used his chains to throw Neji from one wall of the room to the other, making a mess of the Hyuga boy's usually clean room. Neji asked Naruto, "What are you talking about?" As blood from a cut on his head was dripping over his right eye. Naruto was looking right at him. "Simply put, I own your clan now, Neji. If the Hyuga clan gets out of line, if they try to take Hinata, if they so much as have the ink used for the Fuinjutsu to make the cage bird seal on hand should I meet one of them again, I will use all the dirt I have to make sure your clan falls. I will show the world how noble your clan really is by enslaving all of its members." If the punch had been any stronger, the Hyuga's jaw would have been broken. "Hiyashi-sama will never let you use it. I know how he thinks about those who are his enemies. Anyone who crosses the Hyuga clan is killed for their actions against us. You cannot win against the Hyuga clan. It is useless to fight fate and those stronger than you," said Neji before he was punched again, but this time in the nose, and the loud crunch that came with it showed that the nose was broken. First off, fate is a crutch. An excuse by those without the strength to stand up and fight. Second, whoever said your clan was stronger than me? Stronger than my mother? Than the Uzumaki clan? Let me give you a small history lesson about my clan they don't tell anymore in Konoha's history books, Neji. My clan was among the strongest around. Right up there with the Senju and even the Uchiha when they were at the peak of power. We were so strong and so feared, almost every single shinobi village allied together to crush us. The only reason they succeeded was because Konoha didn't come to our aid the one time we asked for it. When Konoha was in trouble during the first shinobi war, we came running and saved it from destruction. When they asked for money when in getting itself in a big financial debt of a hole, the Uzumaki clan helped pay off a large sizable chunk of it without hesitation. Do you understand, Neji? My clan was feared for its strength to such a degree that even Konoha, the supposed ally of the Uzumaki clan, chose to let our clan fall, and watch it die from a distance so they could pick up the pieces that were the spoils like vultures to a dead carcass. Had you faced me in the Chunin exams or any other Uzumaki for that matter with extensive training, I can guarantee you that your body would be torn inside out, and you would know what it means to truly suffer before death finally came to bring about any form of mercy. replied Naruto in a deadly whisper before throwing Neji across the room and released him from his chains in the process. This doesn't change anything. Neji yelled from where he was leaning against the wall he had hit. I like to think it does. You see, Hinata-chan hates the cage bird seal more than you do, and it's not even on her head. I hate the fucking thing because it's an insult to the Uzumaki clan due to such a barbaric seal being made from the original one they commissioned for your clan to use. I intend to have that seal abolished and destroyed for all time. I intend for those wearing it to have such an eyesore be removed from everyone who wears the damn thing on their forehead. What? Asked Neji, who could see less and less and knew he was about to pass out. This beating I just gave you, Neji, isn't even the real punishment I have in mind for you. It's just something to hold me over until later, when everyone in your clan is free of the cage bird seal except for you. That's the real punishment I'm giving you. Neji glared at Naruto's face as it got darker and said, You bastard. Funny, I thought the same thing about you when you almost killed Hinata a month ago. Maybe it's fate? Naruto said in a mocking tone as he left the unconscious Hyuga boy in his messed up room without anyone knowing what he had done to him. And if anyone asked Neji why his body was all messed up, he could just say that Rock Lee did it while practicing.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.